All right, so my name is Drew Metz. I'm the director of the Media Arts and Film Labs at Windward School. At Windward, we seek to teach our children to become better global citizens and meaningful storytellers. We believe that storytelling teaches us to be better communicators with more empathy and compassion. Storytelling and storytellers help us understand who we are in this world, but also who we could be.
Yeah.
Part of our mission is to expose our kids and community to more diverse storytellers. Well, tonight we have a local legend and a true treasure who just so happens to also be a friend. Phil Ranelin is an avant-garde jazz expressionist and trombonist whose life work has affected several communities, the arts, and has had a special impact in the movement of jazz and jazz history that is not always recognized. On the occasion of Phil Ranelin's 65th birthday, the city of Los Angeles and the entire 20-member city council, along with Mayor James Hahn, declared that May 25th, 2004, is declared Phil Ranelin Day throughout the city of Los Angeles. Not only that, but the mayor designated Phil as a music and Los Angeles jazz treasure. In this interview tonight, we hope to share Phil's firsthand account from stories about his life, his experiences in the African American jazz movements, both in Detroit and Los Angeles, Indianapolis, his times working with Stevie Wonder, the Temptations, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, just to name a few, but also Phil's personal lens in experiencing the cultural impacts of music, the civil rights movement, representation in jazz music, and the Black community over the span of his lifelong career. Our questions tonight are provided by the Windward community, both our students, some of our faculty, parents, and affiliates. We're excited because Phil and I have been trying to get this interview going for a long time, trying to bring him to Windward. And Phil, I was hoping we would start with a question early in your life and then fast forward in time to bring us to where you're at now, and then explore more of your history. The first question is from a student, and it's a great first question. And it goes a little something like this. It says, growing up, how were you introduced to music? Was it in home or the church or the community? What was your first introduction to music?
I believe you touched on everything that affected me. It was at home, but it was beyond my home in the community, and also the biggest probably impact. The thing that impacted me the most was my time that I spent with my paternal grandmother.
Mm.
She was not like a grandmother to me. She was like a big friend, like an older friend.
Mm.
And we used to hang out, talk, and do things together, including hiking. She was one of the world's greatest cooks. I put her up against anybody, especially in a certain style of cooking. When I was familiar with African American cuisine, yeah, she was fantastic.
Now, did she expose you to jazz, or was it all music?
Actually, it was all music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Her expertise probably was more in terms of jazz and blues, but she touched upon all music. She had a vast record collection that included everything. So I was first introduced to people like Charlie Parker and Miles Davis through her.
Mm-hmm. And what was the moment that you wanted to play trombone?
Well, it took her kicking pants because the one day that impacted me the most was the one day that she had a lot to do. She was busy. And so she said, well, I'm going to let you just sit here and go through my record collection. And anything you want to play, just feel free. Just don't scratch the records, And so that's what I did. And that's when I ran across Big Maybell, Charlie Parker, and Miles Davis in particular. But that didn't determined that I was going to be, become a musician. It took a little while longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, one day, just bam, it just came to me. Well, I think it was what happened was in my my parents didn't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was he was a fantastic provider, but it wasn't easy for him being uh, a black man in America, in Indianapolis in particular, to find work for his profession,
Mm-hmm.
which was a building contractor. And so I can remember. Okay, I'm going around the block a little bit, but I'm gonna
No, it's great.
set this up. I can remember going out to seek employment with him because like people would call him up and say, "Well, I need a new Porsche. Our Porsche got a big crack in it, and I want to get a new Porsche. Could you come out and give me an estimate?" So my dad always loved Cadillacs,
Mm-hmm.
and so he had a Cadillac, and it didn't take him but one or two occasions to know that he could not drive up in the white community with a Cadillac and get a job.
Now, was this in the 50s or was it the end of the 40s or
This was
60s?
into the 40s.
Okay, in the 40s when you were a little guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would be riding with him. And the first time it happened, I wondered what was going on. So we were going to this address and we parked about 4 blocks away around the corner.
Mm.
And so I said, "Dad, well, how come we parked so far away?" And he said, "I'll tell you later." So we walked. We got to the location and we, you know, provided the information and we got the job.
Mm. Mm.
So when we on our way back, he said, "Well, let me tell you something, son. If we had pulled up in my car in front of that house, I'm willing to bet we would not have gotten this job."
Mm.
Yeah. That's just the way it was.
Now,
You
do you think this was your first time as a young boy um, understanding prejudice, and that was gonna
yeah.
was that one of your first memories,
No,
or
it wasn't my first experience.
mm,
My first experience was an up and close and personal experience when I was 6 years old. I know exactly. I was 6 years old. Me and my little friend. He was 5. He would be 6 in 3 months.
mhm,
But we were 3 months apart.
mhm,
And so we, as young kids, we had been riding through this park and seeing, swings and sliding boards and teeter totters. I think that's what you call it.
and this is
And
outside Detroit, Indianapolis, in the
this
40s.
is
So
Indianapolis, right? I grew up in Indianapolis.
yeah.
So we decided one day we were kind of running free because my mom was in the hospital having my little sister. And so we said, let's go back to that park. And so we were on our way to our park, but we didn't know anything about the difference between race.
Mm-hmm.
And so our community borderline the white community, and that's where the park was basically in the white community.
Mm.
But it's only 3 blocks away from my house. So we were all walking on the way over there. And I'm not going to use the N word. I'm not going to use the term N word. I'm going to say the actual word, if it's not offending anyone. But we're about halfway there, and we hear these young kids coming toward us. They were much older than us. They were like probably youngest 9 and oldest being about 12. Why are you in our neighborhood? And so we looked at each other. I mean, me and my buddy, we looked at each other and said, I don't think they like us. And so they were running toward us. And so since they had sticks in their hand, they're running toward us. We said, we better get out of here. Mm-hmm. So we started running back toward home. And they chased us all the way back into my yard. And I had a vicious dog that stayed chained. He only liked 3 people in his whole life. That was me, my dad, and my mom. That particular day, he accepted my friend. He'd never allowed him to come into my yard before. Mm. But since he saw, what was going on, he let my friend and me run into the yard. Those guys chased us all the way up. And one of them had nerve to come all the way into the yard. He got bit too. Yeah.
Karma's great.
So that was my first experience.
Thank you for sharing that story. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's always important for us to have our kids, and there's diversity at the school, but we're seeking to diversify even more and create an environment where everyone is feeling belonged and inclusive. But it's important to cite how people of color have experienced prejudice and racism in their stories, because it's something that repeats throughout their stories, and we can't change it if we can't talk about it and call for what it is. So,
thanks for understanding. Yeah. But back to the work job, job success. We did the job, did a beautiful job, got paid, and got referrals from that job, which we had to other jobs. But we had to go through the same procedure because those people were jealous. And especially back then, these people weren't really all from Indiana. They were from other parts of the South, and they didn't want to see a black man get ahead of them by paying him money. And he's driving a car better than mine already, and I'm not going to give him a job. That was their attitude. And it's very small-minded, but that's the majority of the white population. I hate to say that, but that's true. The majority of them felt like that. Fortunately, not all. So that was a saving grace. And that existed throughout, from the beginning of slavery and everything else. So anyway, I hope I answered that question.
You did. That was an amazing story to share. I'm glad you shared it. Now, so you're a little guy in the 40s, and you experienced all these things, first waves of prejudice and racism. When did music take over for you? You talked about how grandma exposed you to music, but when did you get the bug with music and start playing, or when you knew, this is my thing, I'm gonna dedicate my life to this? Because for our audience listening, Phil has been an independent musician in every way, shape, and form since he started, from self-recording to self-producing his own CDs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm curious to know, and you're over 60 plus years being a professional musician, a contractor, a player. When did it take over for you? When did music kick in and you decided to dedicate yourself to that?
Okay. Great question. I don't really know the answer, but it was like, I believe, well, okay. I guess I do know the answer. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a pretty racist place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had, by then I had already started playing the trombone. I had a bad experience and I had to stop playing for a while. But I went to Indiana University, spent a semester down there, and got interested again. So when I came back to Indianapolis on break, I picked up the horn again and started practicing. So just so happened, I've always been a lover of clothes and fine things, you know. So I had a girlfriend on a famous black community called the Avenue. It was Indiana Avenue. There was a shoe store down there that had, at the time, the finest shoes a guy could buy. So I was on my way into the store, and a friend of mine, we weren't close friends at the time. We'd only met one time, but we recognized each other. He was coming out of the store with a bag that contained some shoes. I was going into the store to buy some shoes. Mm-hmm. And we got a glance at each other. And he pointed at me, he said, I can't remember your name, man, but don't you play trombone? I said, yeah, I'm Phil. Oh, yeah, I'm Melvin. He was about 23. I think I was 19. And so maybe he's 22. Okay. So he said, hey, I'm playing with Wes Montgomery now. I said, really? Wes Montgomery? You playing with Wes Montgomery? Yeah, man. And we're playing this evening at a place called the Hubbub. If you're still playing your horn, why don't you come by there, man? I'll introduce you to him. So that's what I did.
Now, is that now West Montgomery and that location, was that in the black community or was that outside the black community?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. And so I brought my horn, I walked in the club, and those guys were trio, just trio. And this was a matinee. Started at 5 o'clock in the evening. So they were on a break. And Melvin saw me just as soon as I walked in the door. He saw me, and I had my arm. He motioned to me to come over, and he introduced me. So Wes, one of the kindest guys in the world, says to me, I said, "Hey, what's in that case you got?" I said, "Trombone." He said, "Well, break it out." That was the term of get it out, So I got it out. He said, "Well, come on up and play." So I came up, played with him.
First time, was it improv, or was that your first time improvising on stage? Is that how it was?
Pretty much it was. But I had been listening to records. I hadn't been listening to Wes Montgomery records. Maybe I had one or two. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm listening to J.J. Johnson, another great trombonist. But I had an idea about what to do. So I impressed him enough. It wasn't great, but I impressed him enough to be asked to come back. First of all, to finish the whole day, and then to be asked to come back the following week. So for 16 straight weeks, I went to that club every Saturday and sat in with Wes Montgomery.
And were they? I know a lot of musicians in that era, white and blacks, and even of people of color, weren't always getting paid. Did you get any stipend or salary or
We didn't need money for that.
nothing?
But what happened was, I have to jump ahead of this.
Hmm.
Okay, that was that one experience. Huh? So
Is
what
this
I
is
did
this the
was I developed,
50s at this time? Is this the 50s or early 60s?
well, this is late 50s.
Late 50s.
What I did was I developed a habit of going to this club even after West was not playing there anymore,
Uh-huh.
and sitting in with whoever. Okay, I'm getting paid from other jobs. I'm performing mainly for, on dances and that sort of thing, occasional jazz, but mainly the blues and dances. So, but meanwhile, I'm going to this club to cover pretty much every weekend and sitting in with whatever band was playing there. So let's jump forward to the late 60s. By then, I'm pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
And so I sit in with this band from Detroit. So at the end of the night, the, the, the band leader was really impressed with my playing. So he said, dude, man, wow, you sound good, man. They like your sound. Are you busy down here in Indianapolis? I said, no, not really. Well, I had just I had just broken up with my wife. We had just separated. And so he said, well, if you ever decide to come to leave here, if you want to come to Detroit, man, I can hook you up with some immediate work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't take me long to decide. Like I said, I just broken up with my wife. I'm a free man now,
Mm-hmm.
so I could move. And Detroit was only 300 miles away. I had two young kids at the time, but I could still come back and forth 300 miles occasionally and see him. So when he said that to me, I had already made up my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do. Not only that, what made it even sweeter was my sister, who's actually younger than me, but she had gotten married and had moved to Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all this is clicking in my brain. Man, if I go to Detroit, I got a place to stay until I get my own place and everything. I'm gonna take this opportunity. This is my opportunity to get involved in music full time
Totally.
because I couldn't do it full time in Indianapolis.
So this is going from the late.
So 2 weeks later, I'm driving my car to Indianapolis, Indiana with a lot of my belongings, everything that could fit in the car, to my sister's house to become a full-time musician.
Mm. So that was the big leap.
So that's how I got started. So my sister, who was my biggest supporter, and my brother-in-law, who was my number two supporter, welcomed me to their home. I had a place to practice my horn all day long. And so this guy had told me, if you ever decide to come here, give me a call. So, like I said, when I got there, I immediately called him up. I hadn't got out of the car good, but I called him up. And I got him, and I hear music in the background. And he said, hey, man, we're over here right now rehearsing. Why don't you come by? So I did. Just so happens they were rehearsing for a Motown show. See, he had mentioned to me that he was affiliated with Motown
Mm-hmm.
before, when we met. So I grabbed my horn, went over there, and then rehearsing for a show with the Temptations.
Mm.
So I made the rehearsal. He said, "Are you free to go out on a 10-day tour with the Temptations?" I said, "You better believe it." And he told me how much you paid. They told me how much you paid. I got really excited. So I could give my sisters a little money. I couldn't move out yet, but, that would get me started.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's amazing. And this is so
yeah, so let me finish the story because
sure.
we went out on this 10-day tour, I think maybe the following week. And so the first, this is all a true story, man. Every story I tell is a true story. But amazingly enough, the very first city that we went to, 10 different cities, right, in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I guess I can include St. Louis as being part of the Midwest. But anyway, the tour ended in St. Louis. The tour started up, believe it or not, in Indianapolis, Indiana. The first time. So here it is, less than a month later, and I'm back with the Temptations playing in front of all my friends. With one of the greatest Motown acts ever.
Yeah.
And all the young ladies are just mystifying. And the guys too. But everybody said, "Man, that's Philip up there with the Temptations." I hadn't been gone a month.
Wow.
They didn't even know I had left.
Wow. It must have been amazing showing your friends and family that feeling like you made it, that you cracked into the business.
Yeah.
Anyone
To
that
them,
go
to
ahead.
them, I had made it in
Yeah.
the music business.
Yeah.
Even though I just got started.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, you bring up a lot of great things, and I love this story, Phil. So, okay, so you went to Detroit. Yeah, one of our community members wrote a great question, and there's stuff we're going to cover about the label and the magazine and Close Encounter. But one of the students, community members, wrote this question. Said, "You were part of a group of musicians during the '60s and '70s who were providing the soundtrack, if you will, for the civil rights movement. When did you start to get firsthand this, for your own recordings? Um, when did you start implanting that in your work? I know your big ones were in the '70s, but um, were you recording at all in the '60s, or was it just the beginning of your tour and gigging era?"
Okay, some of both, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I'm not unique when it comes to what I'm about to say. In a lot of cases, most guys that end up making music their life's work, their journey is not, it's not planned out. Certain things happen.
Mm-hmm.
You, you run into someone who you met only briefly, but you hook up again. So that's what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had met this guy, fantastic trumpet player, legendary trumpet player at the time. He already had established himself. His name was Marcus Belgrade.
Mm.
I had met Marcus while I was in Indianapolis. I wasn't playing a lot while I was in Indianapolis, but going out to clubs, listening to bands. He was with this group. Trying to think of saxophone player,
Mm-hmm.
Hank Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
He was with this group called was Hank Crawford. And so I met Marcus in the mid-60s. Also met Wendell Harrison
Mm-hmm.
around the same time with that same group. So when I moved to Detroit, Wendell was still in New York, where Marcus had moved back to Detroit. And so Marcus was really hooked up in Detroit. He played with just about everybody, not only jazz, R&B, blues, salsa, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he was playing with this piano player by the name of Harold McKinney, who had a group called the Creative Profile. Mm-hmm. So after I come back on tour with Motown, I hooked up with Marcus, and we played, and he introduced me to Harold, and I started playing with the Creative Profile. But I only played with the Creative Profile about a month, and I met another guy, through Marcus, who wasn't playing with the group, but he just sitting there listening. And just so happened, he was a contractor with a R&B singer who had a hit record out at the time, guy by the name of Joe Simon. Mm-hmm. And so Marcus introduced me to this guy. His name was Charlie Gabriel, and he had connections to not only the guy he was playing with, but were New Orleans musicians. And so, like I say, he was a contractor for Joe Simon. Mm-hmm. So they were about to go out on a 30-day tour. Mm-hmm. I took it. It only paid $40 a night. Mm. But they played every night. Mm. And man, I got pretty strong on that trombone. I mean, I wasn't playing jazz, but I was building up chops. And so I went out and they toured the South.
And this is in the 60s?
I didn't know. By then, we talked about late 60s, late 60s.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When did you start to dive into self-producing? And was it the magazine that came first or self-producing? And I'm not sure if the self-producing meant you had a record label.
Well, by then, see, I'm already playing with a Creative Profile, a band. I ran into my buddy Wendell Harrison again, mm-hmm. and we talked about our dreams, mm-hmm. which were to play our own music. And so we formed a band who started self-producing concerts. Hmm. So the music came first. We started doing concerts.
You and Wendell?
Our own music. And so then we looked at each other one day and we said, man, we need to record this.
This is you and Wendell here?
Recording. First self-produced record.
With you and Wendell Harrison?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that first record was
Message from the Tribe.
Yeah. Okay, great. Which I love. I was just playing it actually before we jumped on the call. So you guys self-produced that together. And that record has a lot about, it is representation for the Black community and what was going on. And you have some incredible, beautiful lyrics. The whole album feels like a movie score where I feel like it is a story. and the trombone and the stuff that Wendell's doing, and you have the vocalist. Did you guys write that together and know that you wanted to make something that had a deeper message about representation about your guys' times during that time, or did it just come out?
It's true. You know what? You ask beautiful questions, man. The thing is, we're two different individuals. We're two separate individuals too. We both have our own approach to things. They melded together and they worked together. But he had his way, and he had his music, his separate music. I had mine. So we together it made a beautiful togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
So we had, like I say, he had his perspective on the music. I had my perspective. So that's the way the first album come off. I presented my perspective on one side of the album. Unfortunately, album you can only cram in no more than 21 minutes.
Because of records at the time?
One side, and he did another side.
Is that because of the wax and records at the time? That's all you could fit? Is that because of how the wax was for vinyls, or how come there was a 20-minute limit?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where you are.
Yeah. So this is 73. A Message from the Tribe was 73.
That record became a classic record.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one of my favorite songs that comes up, and I hope our community will listen to it. Every time I hear it, it gets me, is Angela's Dilemma. The way it starts, like I said, the whole album feels like a movie. It's it's an emotional experience. And in Angela's Dilemma, you have that beautiful vocalist saying, what we need is love and understanding. We need books for Black education, good jobs for the community, the Black community. That message, and this is right after the civil rights movement. How did that track came to be? Because the album overall is speaking for the community. Was that written by you, by Wendell? Did you guys write together? Did the vocalist have some say? I'm curious.
Okay, well, let me say this. Everything you said was a perspective of the album.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics that you quoted were from a song called "What We Need."
Mm-hmm.
Angela's Dilemma had different lyrics.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But What We Need was first, and then it's Angela's Dilemma. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, both were very powerful. Mm-hmm. You keep referring to it sound like a movie. This music has not ever been connected with a movie until now. I'm 80-something years old, and now they want to use What We Need as part of a movie.
Wow. Do you know the movie's title or anything about it? Do you know the movie's title or anything about it?
Yeah, I do. Let me think. 5 Demands.
5 Demands.
That's the title of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if everyone connected with the movie, but it's going to be put out by Sony.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Phil, I found on my notes. I mixed up my notes. So speaking of lyrics, what we need, talking about, the Black education, good job. I remember I wrote in for Angela's Dilemma, the thing that stood out to me was, quote, "The shape of this country looks grim."
Yeah.
And now I'm wondering, when you look at your journey, and we still haven't gotten up to speed of where you were coming into Los Angeles, we'll get to that next, but when you look at your journey and this country and the Black community in America, do you think those lyrics still hold true, or has America gotten better from what you've seen and experienced?
let me put it like this. If it's gotten better, it's not very much.
Hmm. Hmm. We've had a lot of conversations about this over the years, even with the presidencies the past couple of years. You and I had a long chat about that. Talked about George Floyd. Um, so that
Yeah,
so you would say that that record, everything in that record, probably still holds true to the times.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? Everything he said is true. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Mm, mm.
It still rings true.
Now, do you from do you this is a question, and I'm not sure, it's from the community. Do you feel that you experienced more racism or injustice in the earlier part of your career, or do you think, or have you seen more racism and injustice in the most recent chapters of your life? I know they're probably very different periods because the second half of your life was in Los Angeles. But what's your take on it? Have you seen more injustice and racism earlier in life, or has it been the same or different?
Well, I'm going to make this answer short. It's been about equal.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Now, the one thing we didn't talk about actually is, when did the magazine come into play? Can you tell us about the magazine that you started?
Okay. The magazine came into play as a result of us promoting our music
In the early
and
70s?
dances in particular. So, since we were going out into basically the black community, we didn't go into the whole community. We went, to our businesses that we were familiar with
Mhm.
to secure advertisement, to put in a program booklet to finance the concerts.
Mm.
So, as a result of the program booklets, the latter program booklets got kind of nice, slick paper, 3 or 4 pages, but nice. So, Wendell decided I have to give him the credit
Mhm.
to do this magazine. But the idea came as a result of us going out securing advertisements.
Mhm.
And that's the way the magazine got started too. Or to finance the magazine was to getting advertisements.
Mhm.
Only the magazine's advertisements become national and international.
Mhm. Mhm.
We even got advertisements for golf, which is international.
And how long did the magazine publish for?
Say it again.
How long was the magazine active for?
Well, we have different answers. We mean Wendell and I. Wendell's says it's still going on.
Mhm.
I mean, he says trying is still going on. I say it ended in 8 years,
Mhm.
but like I say, it's kind of reestablishing itself
Mhm.
through different means.
So how about your transition from leaving Indianapolis to Los Angeles to continue music? What was that transition? What started that new journey? Because you had lived in this, once you came to LA, you lived in the same apartment where I had met you as my neighbor for 41 years. Is that right? Or did you have another place prior in Los Angeles?
Okay, let me see here. You're real close. That's what I was in up until my stroke. Okay, I'm gonna quit claiming it. Not my stroke, the stroke,
Yeah.
the stroke. When the stroke happened, I had been in that place 38 years.
Ah.
I had been Los Angeles 44 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And so what was your transition to LA? What brought you out west?
Opportunity. I had an opportunity to play with Freddie Hubbard,
Hmm.
which we had talked about for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I had an opportunity to continue my affiliation with Motown because they had moved to Los Angeles. But I didn't realize it was going to happen. But shortly after I got to Los Angeles, Motown kind of, I won't say they didn't fold, but they stopped using horns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm out here, but I do have Freddie Hubbard as a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And I really, since Motown was folding, it allowed me or dictated that I concentrate more on my music and my career, more so than Motown.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I started doing my own music a lot more once I got here too.
Mm.
Okay, I'm playing with Freddie, but I started establishing a little quartet too.
Your transition to Los Angeles. Well, first of all, it's a dream for a musician to play. Just any artist that gets to do what they love. And I remember asking you this years ago, Phil, probably 2015, when I was moving out. I think I can't remember that it was a movie scene. I remember sitting down. You're probably in my apartment, and I said to you, I said, Phil, I said, I've seen you play at the world stage. I know you played at Jazz LACMA, which we'll talk about a little later, and all your collabs. But I asked you, I said, Phil, how did you make it? Have you made it work for so long? I mean, you've always you've been a full-time musician since you started, and in LA, you're a full-time musician, taking gigs when you can, playing when you can, world stage when you can. How did you make it work? How have you made it work so long? Because that's a question that every artist asks, whether an actor, myself, or writer and director, any musician. How did you make it work so long? Because it's magic. It's like sounds impossible, and you never
I
stopped.
don't know what my answer was then, but I have to say, hopefully I included this love. The love of the music, love of what I'm doing, determination to keep doing it. Although I had to take a couple of secondhand jobs in between, the love of the music kept me in the music, kept me on point.
Mm. You know what? I remember that's pretty much what you told me then, which made me happy because it is the fuel. You know, if you don't love it,
Because you were having your doubts about what you were doing at the time.
yeah,
I said, man, you gotta love it, man.
yeah,
I mean, the love of it will keep you involved.
yeah. I was fresh out of film school.
True.
Yeah, it is. I was finishing film school when I lived next to you, and I remember doing contract work all the time, and I just couldn't believe like how you had made it work for so long. Um, well, we're gonna bring back to love in a second. I have a lot of questions based on your collabs, and we'll tie the story up in a special way. But one Windward alumni who's a musician, I believe, his name's Adam Reese. He said, "Wow, Phil's amazing. He's played quite a bit with Big Black, who I was able to interview recently." So this alumni, Adam, says he wanted to ask, when you play with top caliber musicians like Henry Franklin and Big Black, who you know I like as well, I've heard him on your albums. What is the nature of the communication that takes place between you? He wants to know, how do you communicate in the moment? I'm guessing he's asking when you guys are jamming or improvising. How do you guys communicate with each other?
Well, first of all, there's about a 3 or 4 year difference in all three of our lives. Big Black sold this. Big Black is 85 years old right now.
Wow.
He's probably in better shape than I am. He hasn't had a stroke.
Mm.
So anyway, I'm 83. Henry is 81 or 2.
Wow.
We can communicate with each other based on that a lot. We're all Black musicians that had to struggle to maintain our career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We all have been independent musicians. Independent musicians don't always have to be Black musicians. But, we all have that in common.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the struggle. The struggle comes out in our music. And we respect each other. I had a recent conversation with Henry, and later on with Black too, but with Henry, I say I'm a year or 2 older than him, but I'm talking to him, and he's an amazing guy. And sometimes I call him up and say that. So this time I was calling him up. So sometimes I don't always say that, but sometimes I call him up. And so I called him up to say that in this particular instance. I said, you know what, Henry, you're an amazing guy. I've done some illicit things, and so have you. I didn't do them as long as you. And Henry, at one point, was involved in something that no one ever wants to try. It was something called, back in the late 60s, early 70s, angel dust.
Mm-hmm.
And so Henry got involved in that and was doing it on a regular basis. I unknowingly, I'm not just saying this to make myself look better than him, but I unknowingly did it one time, and I prayed to God. I'm a believer in God, so I prayed. I said, God, Lord, if you allow me to come down from this, I promise you, I'll never do it again. Mm-hmm. Okay, but back to Henry, he was doing it. And I'll say this, fortunately, he did it to the point of he drew attention to the authorities and he got arrested. That saved his life. Because he had to do 2 or 3 years. And he cleaned up. And when he come out, he had a new perspective on life. So I asked Henry this question. I said, Henry, you did a lot of stuff, man. I said, you're an amazing guy to survive all that. And I didn't keep going into detail. But then I said, what did I say? And then he interrupted me. He said, yeah, man, I had to. They told me I was going to be here a long time. And you to picture me by you too. He said, but they told me I had to be here. Some of our friends are leaving and stuff like that. But we had to be here. Somebody had to be here to tell the story. So we were chosen to be here to tell the story. And I'm telling the story now. Reporting the story now.
Amazing. Well, talk about story and communication. Another one of our questions is from Dr. Bruce Eskovitz, who's a luminary Winwardian mentor and teacher. He was the chair of the music department for a long time, and he's very familiar with your work, Phil. I don't know if you guys ever played together, Bruce Eskovitz, but he asked, which band leaders do you feel had the best communication of style and substance as an artist, and why? I'm not a music guy, so you have to tell me that sounds like math to me. So he says, Which band leaders did you feel had the best communication of style and substance as an artist, and why?
The band leader that I felt had the best communication was a guy who's one of the more least famous of them all, but his name was Horace Chapscott, and he's a great communicator and band leader in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
He started a movement out here. I mean, I'm back, and he started a movement in L.A. that exceeded music even,
Mm-hmm.
because it was to the black community, and he's an activist, band leader, pianist, and a great communicator. He could communicate with each individual. He had a large ensemble, a big band called the Ark. He sometimes would be up to 25 members. Each one he could communicate with on a one-to-one basis, like he and that person were best of friends. Because at the time he was talking to them, they were.
Mm-hmm.
He was that kind of guy. He was like Duke Ellington.
Hmm.
He had a way of communicating with each individual. Because each individual in the band was different. And he had to communicate with them differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't BS. It's just the way, he had that kind of personality. He could do it on a even basis, natural basis. You didn't have to try hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish, I wish I had some of that quality. I got a little bit of it, but if I had more, I'd be better.
Mm-hmm.
As a band leader, I'm still going on, but as a band leader, it's a it's a uh, it's a quality that we all dream of.
Well, I have a couple more questions on collabs, and then we'll talk about your personal views on a few things if you're up for it. Um, you, for those that haven't looked at Phil's incredible biography, this man and artist has played with a lot of people that have shaped music. One of our great seniors here, Michael Blevins, he wanted to ask you, what was the 10-day tour like with Stevie Wonder? And do you have a favorite moment or memory from that tour?
Well, your questions always lead to other questions. Okay. Stevie Wonder, I only went out on one tour with Stevie, but it was monumental. And toward the end of that tour, I don't even remember all the places we went, but toward the end of that tour, now, there's been talk that Stevie can actually see. I question it. Because I'm wondering if he can't see, uh, well, he's got great ears, of course. And so, toward the end of the tour, I'm getting on the bus. I will say this, I'm talking, so he could identify my voice with this guy he's been hearing talking for the last 10 days. He's on player. He don't even know his name. But as I'm getting on the bus, he interrupts me. I'm talking to one of the other band members. I don't know who. But I'm getting on the bus talking. He said, "Hey, trombone man, excuse me, but before the tour ends, can you give your name, your information to my manager?" I said, "Oh, sure, okay," because I knew that was leading to something.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't take me long to give my information to his manager. Like half an hour, it went by maybe, and I had gotten information to it. The tour ended, I think, 2 days later. So we're back in L.A. I had been trying to get on the roster of the musicians that played on the records, the studio. So my friends, a lot of my friends who were actually in, during the recordings, they were what you call in. So they were already in. They doing recordings 2 or 3 times a week, and they putting in a good word for me. But so far it hadn't worked. Their recommendations didn't hold water. 3, 4 days later, I get a call from the office to do my first Motown session as a result of Stevie Wonder's recommendation.
Mm.
I forget your original question now.
Well, basically, what was your favorite moment? I guess it was probably having that conversation.
Yeah, it was that. That was my favorite moment.
Say, hey, trombone man, I want to play with you some more. You probably like, no problem, sir. I'm there.
Not only record on his recording, but on all the Motown recordings.
I love it. I think I don't know if I told. Yeah. Well, talk about how amazing Stevie Wonder is. I don't know if I told you this story, Phil, but I was at Sammy's Camera one day, which is the most famous camera store in the country. And I'm in there and I see Stevie Wonder with his assistant. I knew it was him. I see him with his glasses on. I see him talking. I see him in his hair, and he's very distinct. You can't forget his face and his smile. And I think to myself, why is Stevie Wonder in a camera store right now? and then I asked someone. They said, well, he just likes technology and he's actually here to get his computer fixed. And I went, oh, that's cool. And I thought to myself, Stevie Wonder has a computer as well, but you just talk about a remarkable human being, to say the least. How about this for another collaboration? What's up with the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Tell us that. I don't even know this story. I remember you telling me that you had done something with them. Did you go play at one of their concerts, or what's the deal with that one?
I did their first album.
Well, you were on their first album.
Yep.
That's huge. That's huge. It's a monumental album for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see what I got here as we get close to wrapping it up. So here's some questions that's just Phil Ranelin's perspective. But first, this is something I wanted to ask you earlier. So you've been playing and touring and gigging your whole life. And if I'm not mistaken, the end of the pandemic, you were doing one of your gigs, which you've done a lot at Jazz at LACMA, which is a famous thing for Los Angeles. Everyone loves that show. You're playing there, and that's where you had your stroke. Could you tell us that story and when it was precisely?
Okay. What your information is not entirely correct. It's pretty correct. My last kid, who got nightmare, everything you said pretty much was on point. I was feeling a little strange. It's not exactly when I had my stroke. When I felt it coming on, I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't feeling myself, and I wasn't happy with my performance, even though a lot of people were, including you. You were there. So I'm feeling strange. And I looked at Henry and said, man, I don't know, man, if I want to keep doing this. And so 3 weeks later was when I had the stroke.
And how has that affected, you've in the 4 years or 5 years or however long I was in the apartment next door, I would always hear you playing, and you were playing all day, every day.
Part of your question, I think you didn't complete your question. I think, but during the pandemic. Okay, so here we are. Fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
It's 2020. 2020, before I had the stroke, I had a big year planned for 2020. I was going to make a lot of money that year. And not only that, do a lot of playing, on my own. Because when I make a lot of money, usually I wasn't playing my music. But anyway, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm frustrated. I hadn't had the stroke yet. Oh, no, because I hadn't had the stroke yet. I hadn't played at LACMA yet. Wait a minute, let me get this in perspective. 2020. Oh, 2020. 2020 was a pandemic. I'm getting things a little twisted up. My performance at LACMA was 2020. Okay, I want to tell this story. I want to tell the story about my latest recording. It's called Infinite Expressions. Okay. Infinite expressions happen as a result of the pandemic. I'm frustrated because I haven't been able to play. So I jump up one day on my bed saying, I can't let this affect me. I can't keep this from me playing. I got to do something. So that's when I decided to do the recording. And so I started the recording and did the recording. Okay, that's that. Later on, I'll try to correct all. Even on to 2020 and 2021.
Well, about the stroke, when you first dealt with the aftermath of it, how much rehabilitation did you have to do? I mean, I think you chatted with me and you said you were fighting you're fighting with it every day to get back to where you want to be, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's ongoing until I get back. And then beyond that. I know because I went through this before, but not on this level. I went through this before with a car accident, but it wasn't nothing compared to this because the car accident, all I had to do was get my legs back together. This, I had to get my whole body back together.
And do you still practice and play every day trying to rehabilitate?
No.
Which is a big shift because from what I understand, you always practice every day.
Sure, I had to. Up until then, I did it. I had to rewire.
Yeah.
I had to rewire. I had to remotivate myself even to wanting to play the trombone again. The trombone is a very difficult instrument. All my friends who were trying to motivate me and give me inspiration tell me to pick it up every day and do this and do that. But doing it is very difficult.
Yeah.
And you have to do it yourself. And you know where you come from. And man, I'm saying, my mind is telling me, okay, I want to be optimistic, but to the point of playing the trombone the way I played it, I very doubt seriously if I would ever do that. But even if I were able to do it enough to walk on that stage, pick it up, and play something that would make people happy. That would be a dream.
Well, I'll be the optimist for you. Can you imagine going back to the same stage you were at, over 40 years ago and going to play? Can you imagine doing that for one last song or two or three or a couple hours?
Hey, well, thanks for doing this interview. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And you asked great questions between you and the students and everybody else.
Can I ask you three final questions, Phil? Do you have room for three? Well, it's my pleasure, first of all, and I think they're going to learn a lot. Both our musicians and our artists and our community. Um, I mean, there's so I actually have so many questions, Phil, so many more. But let's just focus on three more, and maybe we can do this event again to ask you some of the other questions that haven't been asked. But this is through your perspective as Phil Ranelin. Um, uh, so you can answer any way you want. So here's the first one. Why is jazz music still important?
Because it expresses life. Jazz music has influenced all popular music in one way or the other. Even the ones that do it well make millions of dollars and don't recognize it have been influenced. Very backbone of all music, popular music.
Absolutely. In fact, one of our community members said jazz is America's only indigenous art form as America, right?
That's true.
And this person even said that jazz is more popular in other countries than it is in America right now.
That person wasn't me. If I didn't say it, I meant to, and I would have eventually said. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, so true. Yeah.
Here's another question.
Jazz has influenced people around the world. Eskimos know about it.
How do you define success, Phil?
Doing something you love and being paid to do it. At least enough to survive, Mm-hmm. That's my idea of success. I mean, the love allows you to put your heart in it.
Earlier in our chat, you said that, well, the reason why I got so far and for so long playing independently, playing gigs, recording, doing everything I've done in my journey, you said it's because of love. Well, how do you define love? You as Phil Ranelin.
Something that I know I feel good and happy about, and I make others feel like that same way. It's touching the heart. When you touch people's hearts, you have a friend and a fan for life. I consider you one of those people. I believe I've touched you, and I know I have to enable you to want to do this even.
Well, I'll take that as a sincere compliment. And you touch me because I love your least favorite album. When every time I bring it up, you go, ugh, I hate Portrait in Blue. It's no good. And I love that album. 2015, Portrait in Blue on Spotify.
Well, you know something? I begin to like it too.
It's about time, Phil. It's a masterwork.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's one last question for you. You probably had this one before. Any words of advice for our youth or for our future citizens of the world, whether they're students, jazz musicians?
Chase your passion beyond what it's going to pay. And be honest with everyone and treat everyone, and I do mean everyone, the way you would want to be treated yourself.
Well, Phil, I hope everyone's enjoyed your incredible wisdom and your incredible story. I've learned a lot. I got to ask questions that I've never been able to ask you, and our community had so many questions. We didn't even get through all of them. But I think the main strokes of color and music and life that you shared in your story is all there in this interview. And I'm very thankful for your friendship. I'm very thankful that there's a day named after Phil Ranelin, and I hope that a lot of anyone that listens to this learned something and felt something as well. And I hope that you touch them as you've touched me.
Well, I'm gonna say something. This don't think I heard people that sounds racist. I don't think this is racist. But on my 80th birthday, one thing that affected me the most was this young white guy from Montana who came up to me with tears in his eyes. And he said, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm so glad I was able to come to this because you changed my whole life."
Hmm.
He said, "I'm a young white boy in Montana and I heard some music and I haven't been the same since."
Hmm. Hmm.
That really touched me
Hmm. Hmm.
to know that I affected so many people.
Hmm.
People I never met I've affected. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I'm so glad that the Creator allowed me to do that.
Well, I could be one of the first people to say that I've seen it firsthand, and I'm very grateful for you, Phil, and for everything you've done and everything you're doing. And
Thank you.
let me know when you get your Indianapolis comeback tour date because I'll be there if you give me enough heads up.
I will.
Amazing.
Thank
Well,
you.